Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News starts now.
Tragedy in Nashville today, another school shooting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evie Allen. 7 people are dead, 3 children and 3 adults. Police shot the person who shot and killed those people. It happened at a private elementary school in South Nashville. Police say a 28-year-old woman armed with 2 assault weapons and a pistol entered the school and opened fire. NBC's Dan Shinneman has the latest from Nashville.
Monday morning, a school day. Shots fired at Covenant School in Nashville.
There were so many police cars, and then the ambulances started coming away from the school. And that's when I had heard there was a school shooting.
Inside the private Christian school, teachers tried to protect students.
She said she was hiding in the closet and that there was shooting all over and that they had potentially tried to get into her room.
Police say the assailant entered the school through a side door and began firing.
We now know that there are 3 students who were fatally wounded, as well as 3 adults inside the school.
The shooter fired throughout the school and was on the 2nd floor when confronted by police.
The officers engaged her. She was fatally shot by responding police officers.
Just 14 minutes after the initial call, it was over.
We know that she was armed with at least 2 assault-type rifles and a handgun.
At one point, she was a student at that school, but unsure what year, all of that. But that's what I've been told so far.
Students were guided from the school, while anxious parents waited to be reunited with children. The investigation has just started.
3 people lost their children today. It's hard to imagine.
Something hard to imagine is now reality in Nashville. Dan Shinneman, NBC News.
Now, investigators say she had a map of the school and left a manifesto. She was wearing body armor and entered the building by shooting out a side door. We have an update about the suspect involved in a Camden County shooting. Authorities arrested him just a couple of hours ago. 31-year-old James Mark is accused of being the gunman in an apartment shooting last night. Deputies found a still unnamed male victim with a gunshot wound to the chest. The victim was then taken to a hospital. However, the victim's condition remains unknown. The fire at a migrant holding center near the U.S.-Mexico line left at least 39 people dead and 29 injured. Authorities say the blaze broke out when migrants set mattresses on fire in protest to learning that they would be deported. Those who died included migrants from Guatemala and Honduras. The South Carolina hunting estate of convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh has been sold for $2.6 million. The 1,700-acre Moselle property features a farm, 2 miles of river frontage, 12 run dog kennels, turkey and deer for on-site hunting, and a 5,275 square foot custom-built home. Contents from the property went up for auction last week. Matt. Still to come, thousands take to the streets in Jerusalem to try to stop major governmental changes in Israel. And a chemical spill leads to major concerns about a major city's water supply. Well, Philadelphia is on high alert about their drinking water following a chemical leak into the Delaware River. A chemical facility in nearby Bristol spilled between 8,000 and 12,000 gallons of water-based latex finishing solution into a creek and into the river. Despite officials saying the water is currently safe to drink, residents are scrambling to stockpile bottled water from area grocery stores. Well, protesters filled the street today in Israel, upset over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans for judicial overhaul. The overhaul package would tighten political control over judicial appointments and is due to be voted on in Parliament this week. Protests erupted after Netanyahu fired his defense chief after he pressured the government to stop the legalization and legislation process. Vice President Kamala Harris touched down in Ghana today to discuss and spend the day with the Ghanaian president. Harris has pledged $100 million to Ghana and other West African countries to help them deal with violent extremism and instability. Well, it's an annual worry. The big melt up north leads to flooding worries down south. That's coming up. 2 people are dead and several others injured in Portugal after a knife attack on an Ismaili center. Police report a man carrying a large knife attacked the Muslim center just before 11 this morning. After refusing to comply with officers and lay down his weapon, police shot the attacker after approaching officers with the knife. Thousands of protesters take to the streets of France in wake of President Emmanuel Macron's move to raise the age of retirement from 62 to 64. French police are concerned radicals could use the protests as an excuse for vandalism. Today marks the 10th major day of strikes and protests. Now to the latest on what's happening in Eastern Europe. Russia announced its plan to station tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus. Meanwhile, Ukraine is preparing for a highly anticipated spring counteroffensive as its military receives modern tanks from Western countries. Well, a new indictment alleges FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried bribed at least one Chinese government official. Chinese police froze accounts belonging to Bankman-Fried's hedge fund in November of 2021. The indictment says he directed the transfer of at least $40 million in cryptocurrency to influence Chinese officials to unfreeze the accounts. Tesla is on the hot seat as federal regulators investigate reports some Tesla Model X seat belts can detach while driving. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says it's received 2 reports about faulty seat belts. The agency also says the belts weren't sufficiently connected to the anchor during assembly, and it will investigate that manufacturing process. Despite the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, a new report shows consumer confidence has not dropped. Instead, it's done the opposite. A business group called the Conference Board's reports the Consumer Confidence Index number is higher than what many economists were expecting, but it also showed an increase from the month before. We'll have one more check of your forecast after the break. Well, Disney is cutting costs and cutting employees across the entertainment giant. Approximately 7,000 employees will get layoff notices. There are 3 expected rounds of layoffs. Now, Disney CEO Bob Iger says his company will start the first round of layoffs this week. The move will affect 3% of Disney's 220,000 workers.